Siblani, publisher of the Arab American News, based in Michigan near Detroit. Appreciate you joining us, sir. Thank you. I know they say betrayal is the worst word in the English language. I know you all feel betrayed by President Biden. What do you want him to do differently?
Well, we want him to be a leader. I mean, isn't that what everybody wants from the President of the United States, the leader of the free world? We want him to be a leader. We want him to lead the world, not to destroy it. Since he became a president.
Specifically, sir, though, what would you want him to do differently? You want him to lead how? You want him to demand Israel do what?
I want him to do what is right for the region and what goes along the principle of the United States. We do not expect the president to go to Israel during the wartime and say, we're going to give you all the weapons, all the support, just go ahead and kill people. We would like him to go and say, what can I do in order to solve this problem so we will not have this issue again? The way to protect Israel is to solve the Israeli-Palestinian issue, not to exacerbate the differences between them and then pit them against each other. That is what leadership is. Bill Clinton did it in 1993. He tried during the signing of the Oslo Accord 30 years ago. It didn't work. Because after Bill Clinton, we know what happened. George Bush with the war on terror, and then Barack Obama, was not really a strong leader as far as foreign policy. And then after that, Donald Trump, and then Joe Biden.
I understand the history pretty well. I guess looking forward, if the Arab American vote is going to not vote for Joe Biden, as you have said, who are they going to vote for?
Well, we don't know who the Republican nominee will be, since the choices are very limited in here. However, there is a third option, which is no vote for the top ticket. And not voting for the two of them, whether it's Donald Trump or Joe Biden. I think that gives them something to think about for the future, the Democrats and the Republicans. This is a swing state. If we abstain from voting, then it's going to be calculated. They're going to look at the figures because it's going to be very, very close. And not speaking to the Arab American community and not talking to them and not addressing the issues that they're concerned about, there is a price for it.
Look, you get no argument from me. The Arab vote, not only in Michigan, but in Georgia as well, a couple of other swing states, is extraordinarily important. Look, I'm wondering if you're seeing what we're seeing, which is that President Biden is changing his tone significantly towards Israel. He's now talking, and Antony Blinken is talking about continuing a ceasefire. President Biden seems to have stepped back, especially in his tweet last night, significantly in his position in terms of giving Israel, you want to call it a blank check, a hunting license with no bag limit, whatever you would characterize it as.
Well, there is a saying in Arabic that I'm going to try to translate it into English. It says that I hear what you're saying, and I like it. I see what you're doing, and I wonder. The talk is cheap, because we've heard it before from Joe Biden when he was running, when he said we will have a seat at the table. We don't even have a place in the room, never mind the table. So talk is cheap. We want to see actions. Now, would the president, would Joe Biden be able to bring back the thousands of children and women that have been killed? Would he be able to build all these homes that have been destructed, and these Palestinians that have been, evacuated from the West Bank from the Gaza to nowhere? I mean, that is the question. The question is, okay, you can tell me that you're going to do something about it, but
I understand your point, sir, and I think it's an important one about the loss of life in Gaza. Recent polling, 75% of Palestinians living in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank support the October 7th attacks. recent pictures now from the West Bank of Hamas killing Palestinians and stringing them up on electrical poles. The images that America is seeing of Hamas and of what Hamas does to its own people, I'm wondering, sir, if it would not be easier for Palestinians and Palestinian supporters in America to be able to talk about the plight of Gazans if they were more willing to acknowledge the evil of Hamas, number one, and number two, acknowledge that the only way to have a two-state solution that you talked about, that in the past the Arab world has not supported, and certainly Palestinians have not gone along with, the way to have that has to require the elimination of Hamas.
What it requires also is the elimination of Netanyahu and his right-wing government.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.